afternoon, wherever you are. This is the third segment in the series on the 10th Sfirot in Jewish mystical thought. So today we're going to talk about this one here, which the Hebrew is Chesed. It's 3 letters, and I want to tell you a story, but before I do, let's just talk a little bit about the significance of this particular word and how it corresponds to specific numbers. So Chesed, it translates to kindness, or roughly like loving kindness in English. And it's made up of the 3 Hebrew letters Chet, Samech, and Dalet. Now, what's significant about that? So when you add the numbers that each letter corresponds to, when you add all 3 of those numbers up together, so first of all, so Chet is 8, and I'll explain this in a separate video that will get a little deeper into Jewish numerology, so to speak. So Chet is 8, Samech is 60, and then Dalet is 4. Add it all together, you get 72. And why is 72 significant? Well, I don't know if there's another specific reason, but my guess is there is. In addition to the fact that 72 is 18 times 4. Why is that significant? Because in Jewish culture, it's sort of customary to give as gifts sometimes. For somebody's birthday, if you give them a check, let's say, if you give them some money, a lot of times someone will give you $36. Why 36? Because that's it's called double chai, so that's 18 times 2, and 18 is the letters Chet and Yud, which make the word life in Hebrew. Chai is life. So double chai would be 36. Quadruple chai would be 72. Now, again, I'll have to look into this more, and we'll spend more time in a different separate video discussing that. Now on to the story. Okay, so this was maybe like 8 years ago, about 9 years ago now. And I was in my 3rd year of college, or I guess technically 4th by this point. And so I run into somebody who I'd known, but I hadn't seen in about a year. He was studying abroad, I think in Japan. And so he'd come back, and at this point it's spring semester. We're both in our final years of college, and I'm just in town to get some things, and we run into each other, and we're like, oh, hey, what's up? How's it going? And he says, and for the sake of just keeping people's, just respecting people's privacy, I'm not going to use real names. I'm going to call him Jacob, and I'll call the friend who the story's about, I'll call him Gregory. Let's just put it that way. So Jacob says, yo, have you heard from Gregory at all? Have you heard what happened? And I was like, no. And Gregory was a mutual friend. He was closer to Jacob, but he and I were good friends too. And we had met one night at a Shabbat dinner, a Jewish Sabbath, at the Chabad house, which is basically the house that a rabbi, his wife, his kids, his whole family live in, and also run sort of as a casual place for Jews and anybody alike, Jewish people who were not Jewish, didn't matter, to just come on a Friday night, enjoy a nice dinner, and hear some wisdom from the rabbi and that sort of thing. Every so often he'd also have events that he would host out of his house. So this is how Gregory and I had first met, and then we took a couple of courses together we happened to be in, and then fast forward, we ended up living together for 2 semesters in a shared on-campus apartment. It was me and like 2 or 3 other guys. So anyway, we became pretty close. And then I know after he was a year ahead of me, he graduated. And after he graduated, he moved to the East Coast. I think either to Boston, probably New York City, because he was at that time he'd gotten a job with what's called The Forward, which is a Yiddish publication. So anyway, I hadn't kept up with him. We kind of lost touch. I had been busy that previous summer. Excuse me. And so, one thing leads to another. 9 months go by, we haven't spoken. So Jacob's like, yeah, man, he had a mental breakdown. And I go, what do you mean? What happened? And he's like, well, yeah, he called me one day and he was just like confessing that he, I guess, was gay, but he wasn't comfortable with sharing that, and he had feelings for me, I guess, and was like ashamed, but wanted to tell me finally. And apparently he was hiding his real identity, that he was not Jewish. He actually his family was not Jewish, even though he had claimed he came from a Jewish family, and actually knew more about Judaism, and certainly knew more Yiddish than I did, and probably Hebrew for sure. So it was just interesting. I said, wow, like here's a guy who I thought, was one person, and turns out he's another. But all I could feel was compassion. I didn't feel upset or resentful towards him. I just felt in my heart a level of compassion towards him that I hope he's come, it's been now 8 or 9 years since I've seen or spoken to the guy, and I just hope he's doing well. I hope he's come to a certain level of acceptance within himself, because I know how difficult it is to just be yourself in this world. And if everybody could just be themselves, I think we'd all be better off for it, truly. And so, yeah, this was just a very strange thing to happen. I never heard of a friend who had been, hiding behind a certain identity, or not comfortable sharing who he really was. So, back to Chesed, I think it's really important to look beyond what is just on the surface and not jump to taking things personally when they're not personal. And I recognize that wasn't about me. I didn't personalize the fact that he was, he was who he was, and that was his business. And so it wasn't an attack towards me or towards Jacob or anybody else that he was not being sincere. And so my heart goes out to him, and we'll get into more discussions on this particular topic, and then on the next segment we're going to explore the following theme, which I will leave a mystery until that time comes. So thanks as always for joining, and I will see you soon.